Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Backgammon is beautiful. Today I am joined by Dr. Alex or Alex Eshaghian. Hello Alex, welcome to my channel.
Hello, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the kind invitation. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to see you also. So I wanted to get Alex on the channel because I've seen some of the posts he puts up on the Backgammon forum, often very insightful posts into backgammon. Alex, tell us a little bit about yourself before we begin.
I'd love to. I wanted to start by congratulating you on all your videos and your channel. I mentioned that to you. I've watched all of them, almost all of them, if not all of them, and they're all very useful, and it's really great for the backgammon community. And I think you've inspired other people to start making videos. So I really appreciate that. In terms of myself, I was born in Iran, and my family came to the United States when I was one, and I grew up in Los Angeles. So, as in most Middle Eastern cultures, backgammon is part of our culture, and I grew up learning it, and I started playing at a very young age. And when I was in school, I was always very good at math, and that's why I'm good at things like counting numbers, counting shots, pip counting, and so forth. And then after college, I went to medical school and graduate school where there was a lot of reading involved, there was a lot of writing involved, there was a lot of memorizing involved, and there was a lot of analysis. And I think that's what's gotten me to where I am. I read a lot of books, and I'm relatively fast at reading things and writing and memorizing and analyzing things. And that's kind of how I came to this presentation. When I was in school, I would ask myself, why is a certain question, and do a test, look at one thing and look at another thing, and then that kind of tells you the answer. And this quiz is similar to that, looking at two different types of positions and comparing the better play in one versus the other, and there's similar positions, and it kind of gives you a little insight as to why.
Fantastic. So this will be a really useful video on the dilemma, really, of what do you do? Do you make a 5 point or do you make a 20 point? And this does come up quite a lot over the board. It's not an obscure problem. It's something you might see, one in 20 or 30 games every time you play. Um, Tell me a little bit more, Alex, about why you did a presentation on this. Why is this something important, do you think?
So when I first got into backgammon and the software and learning about it, it was back when there was snowy, and I was just analyzing positions myself. And I said, well, this is great because you have the software that will tell you the results. And I had to think of where should I start, because there's so many different types of positions. And I said to myself, well, the most common position in backgammon is the opening position, so why not start from there?
Hmm.
So these are, I think all of these ones are third roll positions, but the theme comes up in the first roll, the second roll, third roll, and the opening phase of the game.
Absolutely. I mean, I know Thomas Tenland is writing a book on the third row position, and he came on the channel as well. And a lot of mistakes are made that early in the game on the third roll. I mean, because you do get some real like head scratching problems, don't you? So it's a really useful one. So guys, when you watch a video, feel free to pause it and write down your answer, and then you'll see whether you got that correct. And then Alex will offer some rationale behind the correct play. Ready to get started?
All right,
Let's go.
go to mine. Okay, so this is a 5 point versus 20 point quiz. I posted this on the Backgammon strategy page, and I've selected a subset of those in here to discuss the ones that were interesting. Um, so this is basically what it looks like. There are two positions, one on the left, one on the right. Um, on the left, you open with a 4-1 split, and on the right, you open with a 4-3 reverse split, 24 to 21 and 13 to 9. And then the X indicates that black has made some play. And then your next roll will be 4-3 on the left and 4-1 on the right. In both cases, you have a choice as to whether you can make the 5-point or the 20-point. And depending on what black rolls, it'll be different. So that's that. Now, in terms of the criteria, this is mostly from Bill Roberti's recent book. So criteria as to whether to make the 5-point or the 20-point. First, are you winning or losing the game, or are you playing offense or defense? The second point is, which point is harder to make? Because oftentimes it's better to make the harder point first. The third, I think this one is very key. I find this is important. What's the resulting distribution after each play? And we'll take a look at some of those. Fourth, how is the communication between the back checkers and the midpoint? I think that might be more important for certain other positions, but it's certainly important here too. And then how many checkers does each side have back? Again, that's important for other positions. Here, you're always going to have 2 checkers back, and most of the time, the opponent black will have 1 or 2 checkers back. Now, the considerations to make are, number 1, are the opponent's back checkers split, or does the opponent have an anchor? Did the opponent make a new innerboard point? Because if so, that will factor into your decision. Third, did the opponent bring builders into the outfield? And in that case, it's useful to make an advanced anchor before the opponent can make the 5-point, the bar point, or other points. And fourth, can you unstack the 6-point? This is one of the topics I talk about in my book on opening strategies. You start with stacks on the midpoint and the 6-point, and one of the important things to do in the opening is to unstack them, which is why people slot with an opening 2-1, for example. Mm-hmm. Next, benefits of the 5-point. Of course, it has great prime value. It does create a new homeboard point, and it unstacks the 6-point in certain cases. The benefits of the 20-point, on the other hand, are that it makes an advanced anchor, so it's hard to be primed. It makes it more difficult for your opponent to prime you or close you out. It makes it more difficult for your opponent to unstack the 6-point. So, the pros of one are the cons of the other, and so forth. Mm-hmm. So here's the first question, and I'll go slowly. So this is, you open up with a 4-1 split, then black, your opponent, plays a 2-1, splitting the back checkers and bringing 1 down. So here the options are, it's always going to be the same in all these questions. A is going to be making the 5-point, B is going to be making the 20-point. So what are your thoughts on this one, Dan?
Well then, yeah, it's a conundrum, but I think here, because black has brought 1 down from the midpoint, then I think it's better to make the 20-point here, to make the golden point, than to make the 5-point.
Okay, good. So with this one, I have all the questions in contrasting pairs. So before we look at the answer, I'm going to show you question 2, which is similar, but now you opened with a 4-3, splitting the back checkers, 24-21, and bringing 113-9 down. The opponent replied with the same 2-1 split, and now you have a 4-1, and you have the same options to make the 20-point or to make the 5-point. So what do you think here?
I think now you make a 5-point. Yeah.
Right. So there's a little difference here, because if you make the 5-point here, you're able to unstack the 6-point, which is one of the things we discussed. But in the previous one here, making the 5 point, if you make the 5 point here, you're not able to unstack the 6 point and you strip the 8 point. Whereas in this case, you're able to unstack the 6 point and you keep a spare on the 8 point. So now this is the answer to question 1. So here you're correct. The green indicates that it's better to make the 20 point than the 5 point. In this case, with the 4-1, 4-2, then 4. I'm sorry, 4-1, 2-1, then 4-3. And if you look on the right, you have the rollouts, and it's actually pretty close. It's not a huge error, only minus 0.016. Now, if we look at question 2, this was the one where we had the 4-1 to play, and you are correct that it is correct here to make the 5 point. And you see here, it's a much bigger difference. It's a 0.081 error to make the 20 point. So partly that's because of unstacking and the 6 point and your spares and what you're doing. The other thing is here you're already split to the 21 point. So although it can be a little difficult to make the 20 point, it's actually not hard to make the 21 point, which is also a valuable anchor, because all you need is a 3. You don't need a combination like 4-1. And then if you look at the swing rolls, for example, what was it? It was a 4-3. So imagine you make the 5 point with this 4-1, and your opponent rolls a 4-3. The opponent, the black, would play from the 8 point to the 4 point hitting, and then continuing and hitting another checker. However, if you were to make the 20 point and the opponent rolls 4-3, black could come out and hit your blot here, which is a big difference. And that's going to be one of the key swing rolls, which I'm going to show you next. So here's the diagram of the two play of what I was just talking about. So this is that last position where you played 4-1. On the left is making the 5 point. That's what the position looks like. And on the right is what the position looks like after making the 20 point. So again, you can see on the left, if black has a 4-3 to play, it's not as good for black as if black were to play 4-3 on the right. I know that's a little complicated, but does that make sense to you?
No, absolutely. Yeah. Can you define what you mean by swing roll for the audience?
That's what I'm going to get to. So that's an example of the 4-3 is a swing roll, because the equity after your opponent rolls 4-3 and plays is different from one position to the other. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. So that's the next slide. So this is a slide of something I've been working on with my friend Travis Roberts. So these are equity heat maps that can be found in the dice distribution feature of XG, but this is a little bit modified. So in this case, let me go back one slide. The 9-5-6-1 is called play A, and then making the 20 point is play B. Now, in this slide, in the upper left panel, this is the equity heat map for play A. So what this means is after any of the 36 possible combinations by the opponent, what your equity will be after your opponent makes that play. So if you make the 5 point and then your opponent rolls a double 1, your resulting equity will be 0.044. If you make the 20 point and your opponent rolls double 1, your equity will be higher. It will be 0.310 because you've blocked the opponent's 5 point. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is for play A on the left. This is for play B on the right. Now on the lower left is the difference. So what this one does is it takes the value from one cell, a given cell on the left, actually from the right on the right, and subtracts it from the corresponding cell on the left. So it tells you how much better play A fares when the opponent rolls a double one. So for example, this is all color coded. So green is the best and red is the worst. And then the difference is here. So as I was saying, if you look at the 4-3, you see how it's dark green right here and it has the highest value.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what I was referring to. So your equity after your opponent plays a 4-3 between the two is higher by 0.418 if you make play A versus play B. So if you go back and look, if you make play A on the left and now black rolls 4-3, black is supposed to hit here and hit here, and then your resulting equity would be 0.475.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're in this position on the right and black rolls a 4-3, black would play from here to hit your blot, and then your equity would be only 0.058, which is much lower, right?
Yeah, so there's an equity loss between making the wrong play.
So that's what a swing roll is. What your opponent's roll will be. So if there's one going to be much better than the other, in the case of one play versus the other play, that's what a swing roll is. So 4-3 is the biggest swing roll here, and that's why it's the darkest green. That's the biggest positive swing roll. 4-2 would be the biggest negative swing roll. Now, when you look at this diagram, you basically see more green than red, which indicates part of the reason why play A is better than play B. And then on the lower right panel, it's basically a bar graph diagram of the same thing. So instead of the colors being darker or lighter, the height of the bars is higher or lower. So again, that same 4-3 has the highest value here, and that 4-2 has the lowest value here. So this is just a way of kind of looking at things, and you're not going to do this for every position over the board, but it kind of helps me think about how to determine what play is better and what's worse.
Absolutely.
I know that's confusing. Was that clear to at least you?
No, definitely. And I think it's really useful that you've come on my channel to explain it, because I've seen that you've posted these up on the forums and different players have asked questions. But actually, through you explaining it, it's not that complicated. And the fact that it's color coded, you can see the gain and loss in equity quite easily, can't you?
Correct. So the difference between this and what's on XG is on XG, you can only see the top two. It doesn't show you this difference one, and it doesn't show you this swing roll. Also, on XG, the two are on a different scale. These two are on the same scale. So the highest value in either map is the darkest green, and the lowest value in either map is the darkest red. On XG, the color coding is only for a single map. So the darkest green is the highest value in that particular map, and the darkest red is the lowest particular value in that specific map. And then the other one has a different scale. I find putting them on the same scale is better. And that's what my friend Travis Roberts did. So that's this one. Now, this is something I designed to show you the swing roll play differences. So if you go back over here and you see all of these numbers and all of these rolls, you see 4-3 is the highest value. It turns out to be about 0.8 here, but it's only 0.4 here. And that's because it's doubled for non-doublets here and it's singled for doublets. But in any event, that's the highest one. So this table lists all of those rolls in terms of the equity difference from highest to lowest here. So green is the top and red is the bottom. And what I've designed is play A versus play B. This shows how the opponent plays that play. So as I said, for 4-3, it was 8-4 star, 4-1 star. Whereas play B, the opponent would hit you on your 9 point, which would be 23-16 star. So if you look at this, it kind of gives you an idea as to why. The plays that are different between the two are highlighted in yellow, and the plays that are the same are white. So if you look at the top ones that are green, you see there are different plays here: 4-3, 5-3, 6-2, and so forth. And on the bottom, the same thing. So this is just another tool that I've kind of developed to help you see why the play is better. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and I think it's super useful because occasionally you do get a very complicated position, and in order to really understand that, you need to look at dice distribution. And I mean, this is something I've used on a more basic level on other videos, but this is like taking it forward and developing it.
Right,
But
right.
it's great, yeah, Alex.
Yeah. So next, I'll go through this one a little bit more quickly because it's complicated and it might be a little bit too much. This is a two-roll equity heat map for play A. So all these across the top are black's next rolls, double 1 through double 6, and there's an average at the end. And then these are all of white's rolls after that. And in this map, it shows the equity. So I've deleted the numbers because it's too small to read, but you can see the colors. And then this one was for play B. And then this is the difference one. So green favors play A and red favors play B. If you recall, the 4-3 was a key swing roll. So if you look at the column corresponding to 4-3, you see how green it is. And also for 3-4, which is the same thing. And then 4-2 was the biggest negative swing roll, which favors play B, making the 20 point. And that's why this column is mostly red. Do you see that? Okay, so this is useful for certain other things, but I thought I'd include it just for completeness.
Let me just ask you, Alex, what do the axes refer to? The horizontal and the vertical?
So just like these ones over here, which each of these cells refers to one roll by the opponent, right? In this one, so there were 36 possible rolls.
Yeah.
In the big one, there are 36 possible rolls by the opponent and 36 possible rolls by yourself. So there are 1,296 cells in here. So this cell refers to your equity after your opponent rolls double one and then you roll double one. So it's basically all the 1,296 combinations for the next two rolls.
I see.
Okay. These are a little bit more useful for sometimes when you have to look two rolls ahead. That's not the major topic of this, but I thought I'd include it because it's something I'm working on.
Yeah, great.
Okay, so next we can go to question 3. Now, this is also the same thing. So you opened up with a 4-1 in this case, and then the opponent rolled double 3, moving up here and making the 10 point. And now in this case, you have a 4-3 to play. So the same choices where you can make the 5 point or you can make the 20 point.
I think I make the 20 point.
Okay. So now let's look at the other one where same thing, but now you have a 4-1 to play, and you can still make either point.
I think here, because black has the extra point in the outfield, yes,
these are difficult.
Yeah. I want to say the 20 point again here on this one. Yes.
Okay. Well, let's look. So here in the first position where you have the 4-3, it's better to make the 20 point. Of course, because when your opponent has an anchor, you want to make an anchor. And when your opponent has additional builders, you want to make an anchor, despite the fact that you leave a direct shot here. And making the 20 point in this case is correct by 0.058. On the other hand, this was the tough one. It turns out they're basically dead even. You see, it's only a 0.009 difference. But the point here is to see how much. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm going to make that stop somehow. This is what happens when you're in the office. So this one, because of the fact that you can unstack the 6 point, it becomes so close. So the idea here is not to memorize when to make the 5 versus the 20, but understand the reasons why it's almost even here versus here it's not close.
Yeah.
And then when you're able to understand those ideas, you'll be able to use that information to determine what's the best play in a different position.
Absolutely. And they can use your criteria for that at the beginning of a
Correct.
video.
Okay, so then let's go to the next one. So here, the opponent played 5-1, and now you have a 4-3 to play. So we'll give a moment for people to think about their choice.
Yeah, pause the video, guys. These are definitely not easy decisions.
This is not easy. And then I'll move on to question 5. It's question 6 now. Now you have a 4-1 to play, and you have the same two choices. Make the 5 point or make the 20 point. So pause that if you like, and then we'll move on. So the answer to question 5 here, it's correct. So I highlighted a green for the correct answer, and you can see that over here. Here it's better to make the 5 point, but actually it's rather close. It's only a 0.015 difference. On the other hand, here it's right to make the 5 point by a lot because of the fact that you can unstack the 6 point here. Whereas playing a 4-3 here, you wouldn't unstack the 6 point and you would strip the 8 point. So these are kind of some themes we're seeing. Next question. Now the opponent made the bar point with a 6-1, and you have a 4-3 to play. Now, if you look at the opening position where the opponent rolls a 6-1, and then you have a 4-3 to play from the starting position, this one, it's to bring both check return, obviously, because you made a play, and now you have a 4-3 to play, so you can make either the 20 point or the 5 point. And then in the next one, it's the same thing, but now you're in this position, and you can make the 5 point or the 20 point. So let's go back to question 7, allow people to pause it and think about it. And then we'll go to question 8. This is the corresponding one. We'll allow people to pause it and think about it. And then we'll go through the results here. So this is for the first one where you have a 4-3 to play. It's actually correct by a good amount to make the 20 point by 0.064 because now black has this 3 prime. On the other hand, here, when you have a 4-1 to play, it's correct by almost an equal amount to make the 5 point. So despite the fact that you can make an anchor here, because of the fact that you can unstack the 6 point and leave the spare on the 8 point, it's better to make the 5 point in this situation.
Interesting.
And then the last pair, yeah, did you have a question?
No, it's interesting, and this one goes into game plan that black has more of a priming structure, so that influences the decision as well. Yeah, interesting.
Correct. And then the last set right here where you played your 4-1 and now the opponent rolls a 6-4 running to their 14 point, and now you have a 4-3 to play. So same choices. You can make the 5 point or the 20 point. We'll allow people to pause the video to think about it and make a decision. And then we'll go to question 10. Same thing, but now you have a 4-1 to play, and you can also make the 5-point or the 20-point, and we'll allow people to pause their video to think about their play. Next, we'll go on to the answers. So for question 9, it turns out they're basically tied between making the 20-point and making the 5-point.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out when a player brings a checker to the 14-point versus bringing it out to a 10-point with, for example, a 6-3 or 5-4, it makes a lot of differences because of something I call dice value difference, which is defined as the difference between the value of the two dice. So in the case of 4-3, the difference between 4 and 3 is 1. And then in the case of 4-1, the difference is 3. So I call this a DVD3 and a DVD1 and a DVD3. What happens here is in the opening position, these 2 points, the 6-point and the 8-point, are 2 apart. So rolls that have a DVD value of 2, such as 3-1, 4-2, 5-3, and so forth, are useful to be able to make a point. When you bring a checker to the 10-point, it's still 2 points away, so you have those same numbers are duplicated. So like a 4-2, if this were here, you can make the 14-point or the 21-point. Now, in this case, when they're 1 away, now you have DVD1. So now, in addition to 3-1, 4-2, 5-3, and so forth that are useful, you can play rolls like 3-2 to make this point, 5-4 to make this point, and 4-3 to make this point, and 5-4 to make that point. So that becomes important in a lot of these. But that's kind of the subject of something else.
That's
now,
really useful, yeah.
In the other position here, now they were close in the first case, but now since you can unstack the 6-point, it makes it much better to make the 5-point in this case.
Absolutely.
Okay. I believe that's the end. I'll go through the summary, and then if you have any questions or discussion or comments, we can discuss that now.
Did you want to bring up the summary and then Alex?
I will.
Yeah.
So this is basically the same slide as before, but again, are you playing offense or playing defense? If you're, which point is harder to make? Again. And also, as I mentioned, if you've already split to the 20-point, sometimes you can just make the 20-point anchor on the next play, which is not as hard as making you can make the 21-point anchor, which is not as hard as making the 20-point anchor, but it's still a good anchor nevertheless. And then the resulting distribution after each play, we kind of discussed that significantly in terms of leaving a spare on the 8 and being able to unstack the 6-point. And the communication between the back checkers and the midpoint, that's not so relevant in these cases. And then the 5th one is how many checkers does each side have back, is also not that relevant here.
Yeah.
So that was it. I'll go back to the front, the top one, so we can discuss and have any concluding remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Really useful quiz positions there. And your summary is really helpful, particularly point 2 on, do the hardest thing first. Like you said, like in one instance, you need to use both numbers on the dice. But in one instance, you only need a 3, so you can use either of the dice. So that's always really useful, I think, in deciding on which play to make. And it helps people do like shot counting and good skills to learn. Yeah.
Yes. Now, in the original quiz, I believe I had 20 positions, and for the purposes of brevity in this video, I narrowed it down to the most interesting one, but I can send you the PDF of that so you can put a link in the video or in the comment section or however that works.
Absolutely, I'll do that. And also for the audience, if you want any more information regarding the heat map that Alex showed us earlier, if you need further explanation, and then either contact me or contact Alex directly through Facebook. You'll see he's quite active on the forum, so I'm sure he'd be more than happy to further clarify any points.
It's actually my pleasure to be able to do that. I've had a lot of people ask, and we've had a whole discussion about it. It's something, as I said, when I went to graduate school, I was very analytic, so this is the kind of thing I enjoy doing. So I enjoy discussing it and teaching other people about it. So anytime you can just contact me on Facebook.
Amazing. Well, Alex, really useful quiz. Hopefully, the audience will get a lot out of it, and certainly some of the underlying logic to these decisions will improve. Because as you showed in some of those examples, making the wrong play is actually a blunder. So it's not a small decision. Um,
Correct.
any last comments, Alex, before we wrap up, or are you finished?
I just wanted to thank you again so much for the kind invitation to be on here. I really enjoyed it. I enjoy your videos. Thank you for all of the work that you do. I know it's a lot of work, and you have a day job, so you have to do it in your spare time, like I do.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Alex, for all the work you're doing on the dice maps and all of that stuff, which is hugely beneficial. And hopefully, this will reach a wider audience. So, thanks for your time, Alex, and
My pleasure.
see you around. Bye bye.
Bye bye.